I'm excited to talk with you a little bit about the role of incubators now. So as Gretchen mentioned, I work with Kitchentown. We're a food startup incubator. We have a scale-up facility down in San Mateo. I'm going to sort of back up a little bit, to talk about what's going on in the food system and sort of what food startups are dealing with in terms of the challenges going on and the context in which they're operating, right? So we already know that there are global problems and global issues about health, food waste, sustainability, issues of social and corporate responsibility, transparency in the food systems, and all kinds of systems. So just a couple of facts to lay some context for us before I start. By 2050, the global population is estimated to be over 9 billion people, and that's going to put enormous strain on our resources, including food resources. That's also in addition to what we currently have going on, which is sort of a contradictory set of operating sort of principles, which is that we're wasting about 40% or up to 40% of the food supply. At the same time, we also have communities around the world that are dealing with huge issues of food insecurity. So as a startup coming into that context, the problems are many, as you can imagine, and those of you who have small food businesses are probably aware of many of these issues, right? Unlike the tech industry, which has a really well-developed and highly evolved ecosystem to support startups, food and beverages lack that kind of ecosystem. It's a little more piecemeal, a little less straightforward in terms of what are the exact steps, because each food, depending on what category it is and what audience they're trying to reach, has a slightly different path. The other thing that's really challenging for small food companies and early stage startups like the ones we work with at Kitchentown is that they need funding in order to grow their businesses, but the funders require validation. And so there's a bit of a chicken and the egg problem with food that's different than tech, which is that in order to validate your business as a food company, you have to go into production, you need to get on store shelves, and those are barriers to entry for small businesses especially. And we know that and try to help with that. And lastly, I will say that even when startups validate their concept and are able to talk to some VCs and maybe be involved in an accelerator program, those alone are not enough. Mentorship and capital are great. Everybody needs them. We try to provide some of that. But food startups also need infrastructure, expertise, and a roadmap. And so that's what we think the role that incubators can play and what we try to do at Kitchentown. So part of our solution as a incubator, which is maybe different than other incubator programs that you know about, is that we combine the facility with the industry expertise to help grow and advise businesses. So what that means is that we don't run a cohort-based program. It's not a lockstep model. We actually have folks come on to our scale-up production facility. They often already have a product on the shelf, on a couple of store shelves, or they might be at farmers markets and they're looking to grow. We help them do that in a really flexible format where they pay for what they use and they can grow over time with us. So we provide scalability plus stability in that sense. We also offer a lot of expertise, mainly through industry connections. We're very highly connected throughout the Bay Area. But also beyond. We work with food startups from all over the country, and we actually have connections in Japan and Brazil and Canada and all kinds of countries around the world. So we're constantly trying to connect our startups to mentors and resources, in addition to providing them the stability of having a place where they can grow and scale their business in a production facility. But what it really starts with, as I alluded to at the beginning, is making sure that you've got an impactful idea and an inspiring founder. So increasingly, what we have learned as we've been working with packaged food companies at our facility is that it takes more than just a great product. It's an increasingly crowded food startup marketplace. Lots of people are starting new companies. And in fact, we have found that new food startups, more than 50% of them are people from outside the food industry. We have a lot of folks coming to us from tech, from investment banking, and from medicine in particular, who are looking to start food businesses. So there's a lot of clutter to break through, as you know. You can see on the main hall, we have a lot of companies here, all of whom have interesting and delicious products. But what we're really trying to encourage for the next generation of startups is thinking about how they contribute or solve a problem as part of a larger movement. Whether that's related to climate change, health, whether it's related to some kind of transparency in the supply chain, whether it's related to any number of social responsibility issues, we have seen that those startups that have a bigger idea behind the product that they're putting out in the market, they tend to gain greater traction because they have a more authentic story to tell. In addition to that, you have to have, of course, a clear value proposition for your consumer. You can't be all story and no product. It's a mix of those things. And so, you know, the product matters and you need to be solving a need for the consumer. But we do see that sustainability increasingly in California, environmental concerns, all kinds of things with supply chain, making sure that people know where their products are coming from, transparency in your sourcing. These are things that small companies can do that have been actually really tough for big CPGs to deal with and communicate to consumers. And so it's really where we see the startups having a leg up. I want to talk about this graph that might show up, hopefully. Yes, here we go. Okay, so part of the challenge for startups is that it is a challenging industry that is actually designed to cater to the big food players. It's a system, right? We're seeing all kinds of systemic change or challenges to systems throughout society, and it's no different in the food system. So it's designed to favor big food companies, and they have control of the market, they control the sales, they get the majority of money. But startups are definitely mounting a challenge, and the corporates are taking notice. They're concerned about what the startups are able to do, and they can innovate. And so what we're trying to help our startups understand is that the path forward is about moving in a direction that avoids either one of these two paths. So you could have high sales growth without infrastructure, and ultimately, you're going to hit a wall because you lack capacity to fulfill all your orders, and you're going to crash. Or you could sort of have some organic growth, but you're unable to scale and break out because you're not really thinking about what it takes to go into a higher production, and you kind of end up plateauing early. And what we're trying to help startups think about is how do they get to this sweet spot where they can kind of step their way into greater production and greater sales over time to build a sustainable business model. So part of how we do that, I've mentioned we have facilities. A big part of the facility is our peer community. Folks, like I said, they've come to the food industry not knowing anybody in food. They often don't know other founders. This is often, for many of them, the first startup that they've been involved in. So we provide a network and a community where they can meet other founders, ask each other questions, learn from each other's mistakes and successes. We also provide industry expertise in a number of different formats. So we have a learning lab which operates in San Francisco and provides a central location where we can provide some structured learning for people. So we have workshops, we have mentorship programs, we are developing intensive courses to kind of make sure that each entrepreneur knows the basics of their business in terms of finance and marketing and operations and distribution. There's a lot to know when you're a startup. And so we're trying to provide that support for them to get that knowledge and expertise. Also, we do a lot of work to make sure that they have connections to retailers and distributors and consumers. And one of the ways we do that, if you ever want to come down to our facility in San Mateo, is we have a cafe and store that is open to the public. And it's actually a really great way for us to educate people locally about what's going on in the kitchen exhibition behind the glass wall of our cafe. And then we can talk with them about the products on the shelves, and the makers can come out and talk with our consumers as well, or our customers in the cafe. And finally, we are really excited about our Open Innovation Program, which is a new initiative that we have launched to create partnerships and opportunities for collaboration between small startups and big CPGs. I've mentioned a couple of times that we have had a lot of conversations with these CPG companies, and they are really struggling with innovation, and they're worried about what startups are able to do and how quickly they're able to adapt. And so they're looking for opportunities not to steal ideas, but to say, how can we learn from each other? What mentorship can we provide? Do we have some equipment that might be useful for you to test to see if it can help you scale better? Can we make a small investment in the most interesting ideas to make sure that they're going to grow and succeed? So we're trying to facilitate those meetings and then send people off, send businesses off to kind of nurture those relationships over time and see where they lead. And at the core of everything we do is mentoring. As I've mentioned, we sort of think about all of these areas. There's a lot of things for our companies to learn and know, and so we connect them through formal and informal ways to mentors at every level. We know experts who've been in the natural and organic space for decades, who've worked at big companies and small, who've started their own businesses, who've been co-manufacturers and co-packers. So we really try to answer all kinds of questions for folks, and we try to do it at the time that they need those answers. So we really try to meet our businesses where they are. They're each going to have to deal with all of these challenges, but we try to sort of help them when they're ready to tackle each area of the business. So that's what we do, and I hope that that's been useful. If you want to find me, I will be down in the incubator alley later today. You can come see me at our table on the way into the exhibition hall down on the lower level in this building, or feel free to reach out to me by email. Thank you very much.